I'll start again. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Small World Speakers Forum. Is this the second Speakers Forum we've had here? I started this Speakers Forum in June and dedicated it to Penny Kemp, whose themes these are. She died last year, but during her lifetime, she was an incredible woman, and she continues to inspire us all. She welcomed Small World when Small World was looking for a home, a field to have a festival in, and she loved Pony's idea and welcomed Pony and Small World to these fields, and they've become our home fields. And now that she's dead, her family have respected how much she loved Small World and how much she loved bringing us all together, and so these continue to be our home fields. And in honor of her, I asked Pony if I could create a speakers forum and a campaign space here. And much as he was not wanting any politics on this field, I said, well, politics has now come to us with the changes in the laws, the PCSC laws, which are attacking the travellers' rights and human rights and our protest rights, etc. This is the time for it, and he agreed, and so here we all are. So we all owe a huge debt of gratitude to Penny, and if you didn't know her, do look up Penny's story, her obituaries. She was such an incredible woman, not just for here, but for the green movement across the planet. Caroline Lucas is our one and only Green MP. Caroline Lucas started off applying for a job when Penny was the press officer for the Green Party, and so Penny was her boss initially. So that's a bit of history on how this started, and a bit of history on how I ended up being a speaker myself. I'm actually extremely shy and introverted, and I suffer with agoraphobia and all sorts of different things. But when I'm here, I have to actually push myself to get out of my van to come out here and talk to people. I have to push myself to walk up to people and introduce myself, ask them to come up to speak. It's a constant battle inside of me to be out there and pretend I'm extroverted. Something to just get, and in my head, the way I play it is I just think everyone else is introverted too, and everyone else is shy, and no one would actually get to speak to me if I didn't go and speak to them. They're shy of it. That's the way I try and get over it as a way of getting to speak. Today I had the first ever Young People's Forum this morning. And one of the young people, I don't know if you were here when the young people spoke, one of the children that spoke was a girl who'd come to actually lend her support to her friend who was going to speak. And I asked her if she'd speak, and she said, "No, I'm too shy, and I'm here to give support to my friend." I said, "Okay, that's fine, but if you decide you'd like to speak, you're welcome." And she actually stepped out of her comfort zone to speak to us. And she spoke about bullying, she spoke about friendship, she spoke about grief. And then we didn't have much of an audience when she first spoke, and then we got more of an audience. So I said to the young ones who had spoken earlier, would they like to repeat what they'd said so that everyone else could hear? And she stepped out of her comfort zone a second time to do that. And that, to me, was so inspiring, because that's a message, not just in what she had to say to us, but also in her doing that, is a message to all of us that we can step out of our comfort zones, and we have something to say, and we need to say it, and other people need to be able to hear it. And unless we step out of that comfort zone to say it, no one's going to hear that message. And only we can use our voices and actions. And that little child again did that. And it moved me to tears to see it. It made me so proud. It made me so proud to see you two young ones stand up here and speak out and tell us about what you're doing. And it gives me hope when I see the young people of today standing up and doing what needs to be done, saying what needs to be said, joining the activism and protests, and refusing to be silenced, and understanding that silence is complicity, and then you're not going to be complicit. Does any of you know about the Peterloo massacre? While I was at Green Gathering, this was no, the week after, I couldn't be at this at the Peterloo massacre rally that was happening, a reminder of what happened on the 16th of August in 1819. And I asked the Word, who had organised it, if I could have some of the copies to bring out here to show and share with you. Would you like to have a look at the copy? But the Peterloo massacre happened when people of yesteryear, in 1819, stood up and spoke out and said they wanted change. And in response, this government was so brutal that they sent people out there to just massacre the people who were protesting. A peaceful protest, and people were massacred. And history repeats itself if we don't learn from history. Because those lessons, we need to learn from them and grow from them. And the Peterloo massacre is a reminder that the brutal government then and the brutal government now are one and the same. Times have changed, but nothing else has changed. The brutality continues. And this government is enacting law after law after law which is unlawful, which is against all human rights, against all democracy, against our planet, against peace. This government has used billions, hundreds of billions of our taxes, of our money, to build super prisons before even enacting these laws, in readiness for when they enact these unlawful laws which will criminalize, are designed to criminalize us. So they aren't rolling out and massacring us in the streets, but they're finding other ways to silence us and intimidating people, scaring people from coming out in protest. I don't know if you've heard of Deepak, but there's a sign behind me about Deepak, Disabled People Against the Cuts. Please do find them online. They've got an internet website, they're on Twitter, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook. Find them, support them, join them. They were one of the first groups of people who stood up to this government, who said there's something wrong with this government. So in 2010, when the Tories came to power, aided and abetted by the Lib Dems, a handful of disabled people stood up and said, if you have cuts, if you have austerity, if you have welfare reforms, if you target them at disabled people, it's going to result in death. And Deepak was ignored, mocked, ridiculed. They tried to silence Deepak, but the disabled people were insistent this is the truth. And like the Nazis, they're coming for the disabled first, but they will come for everyone else. And again, nobody heeded us. So in 2011, a year after we've been in power, there was a Freedom of Information request submitted, asking them, saying, you say no one's dying, we say they are. We take one aspect of your reforms, just your assessments for fit to work, your fit to work tests. How many of the people who you have assessed as fit to work were dead within 6 weeks of that decision? How many were dead? Not within 6 months, not within the 2 years you've been in power, but just 6 weeks of that decision. How many were dead? And under Freedom of Information request, they had to respond. And they responded. And their response came back as 10,600. And that was the figures for not the time they were in power, but just for 10 months of 2011. 10,600 disabled people dead. Now when the government is admitting that their policies their actions are resulting in people dying, when they're admitting that those actions are resulting in tens of thousands of people dying, and when the media colludes in silence, is complicit with that eugenics, with that depopulation agenda through their silence, when the government is admitting it, but there's not a word in the press. The BBC, anyone. Can you imagine 10,600 of any other community that had been killed being ignored? But it's okay because we're disabled people. We're the lowest of the low. Can you imagine if they did that to the gay community? Can you imagine if they did that to the black community? Could you imagine if they did that to refugees? Yeah, but it's okay because we're disabled. And that's what happened with the Nazis. They started with disabled because disabled people are already so othered. Because whichever your community, whether you're black, whether you're gay, whether you're refugees, whether you're immigrants, within those communities, the people who have disabled children, the people who are disabled, the people who have disabled elders that they're caring for, are the ones that are on the lowest rung. They're the ones that get hit first and hardest by everything. Austerity, cuts, climate crisis, cost of living crisis, you name it, whatever it is. You look at Ukraine, look at the refugees that are fleeing from there. What happened to the disabled people who couldn't flee? Yeah, always, whether it's war, whether it's famine, whether it's drought, whatever it is, people who are disabled will be hit first and hardest. And when it comes to oppression, it's the same. And so we started with disabled people. No one believed us when we said we would not be the first. We would not be the only ones. There will be others. And so they came for single parents. Then they came for people who were low earners, not earning enough. You're not working hard enough. You're not doing enough jobs. You're not need to take on more work. Universal credit, whatever job you're doing, whatever you're earning, if you're on such low wages that you need universal credit, you're under constant pressure to find more money, find more work on top of your work. So you could be doing 3, 4, 5 jobs, it doesn't matter how much work you're doing. If you're still not earning enough because they're paying you slave wages, yeah, because we don't want to have to pay you. So instead of pressuring the bosses that are paying poverty wages and slave wages and benefiting from the benefit system, because that's what the benefit system is. It's not benefiting the people who are hungry and poor and struggling in poverty. It's benefiting the poverty wage employers. Yeah. It's benefiting the millionaire landlords that are sitting in Parliament who voted against making landlords responsible for making their rented accommodation fit for human habitation. Can you imagine voting against such a simple thing as making sure that your house is fit for human habitation? But they're millionaire landlords breaking it in. If you look at the millionaires and billionaires and look at where the housing benefit actually goes to, they're taking millions and billions, and yet they vote to prevent the lowest paid getting proper wages. They vote to try and break the unions. They just passed a law allowing scab labour, allowing agency labour to be brought in, which wasn't allowed previously. So strikes actually made a difference. Now people can go on strike, they'll just bring in someone else. So now what we need to do is unionize the labourers that are working for the agencies so that they aren't forced into working when they don't want to work, when they don't want to be scabs. We need to unify, we need to unite, we need to pressure the unions to not just stand up for workers' rights, but for all human rights, for the workers' families, for the workers' disabled children, for the workers' disabled community, for their pensioners, and not just for the workers. workers, because when they stand up for workers, what does it do? It divides straight away. And it falls straight away into the government's narrative of workers and shirkers, skivers and strivers. Yeah. And we fall into that when we just talk about workers. What about the workers' families? What about the workers' communities? What about the workers' right to health and safety? Yeah. When they're cutting the staff to man the trains, you can only have one driver on a train. Can you imagine one person on a train being responsible if there's a crash or something? How can they physically be on any other section of the train to help people if there was an accident? If the stations are unmanned, how do disabled people get a ramp to get onto a train? Yeah, when they're fighting for their right to proper wages, they're not just fighting for their wages, they're fighting for their right to health and safety for themselves and for the people who they serve. On the other side, we've got the government and the bosses fighting to have as much money as possible at risk to us all. And they're fighting when the RMT union is fighting to have the tracks service, to have money go back into the infrastructure instead of into shareholders' pockets and to CEOs who are already getting millions to have another few million. Yeah, they're fighting for all of us, and we need them to understand that we stand with them, but they need to stand with us too, because it's no longer them and us, it's all of us. It's a class war. But there is a them and us, them is the super rich against the rest of us. But what they don't get is that even that them and us doesn't exist. There isn't a them and us between species. There isn't a them and us between rich and poor. When the climate, when the heat rises, it rises for all of us. They can put on their air conditioning, but when they put down their air conditioning, they're actually making the situation worse. Yeah. When the cost of living crisis hits, the rich with land can drill into the ground and get heat source pumps from the land. They can get air source heat from the air. They can put solar panels in. They can do all sorts of things. If you've got money, if you've got land, if you've got space. What about the people who don't have that? What about the people who get stacked in boxes into high-rise apartments and left without even the fire safety that they need? When Grenfell burnt, when all those people died, the people left searching for justice are still looking for justice. The people saying that must never happen again are still being ignored. They're still not putting in the fire systems. They're still using the same cladding. They're still creating a system where disabled people are trapped in their flats if something goes wrong. The inequality, the injustice that lies behind every crisis, including the climate crisis, is something that we cannot afford to continue. The racism, the sexism, the misogyny, the ageism, the pitting the young people against the elders against the young people.
Bigotry and fascism.
Yeah. So bigotry and fascism, indeed. Thank you, Nice. So yeah, it's understanding that what has brought us here, and so we don't. Now you might like one of those. What's brought us here is the inequality, is the racism, is the colonialism, is the greed of the few who are willing to plunder and kill, and have been doing so for centuries and have escalated things in recent times. But they depend on division to do what they do. They depend on division to colonialize, to control, to conquer, to exploit, to enslave, to rob. Yeah. And what's the opposite of division?
Unity.
Yeah. So our response has to be to find ways to unify us and when we want to respond in anger and hate against other groups of people, other causes, when we fight for little pots of money for our cause instead of someone else's cause, we're being pitted against each other. If we unify, then all the little pots of money can be put together. We can stand for all of it, and we can fight for all of it. We can empower each other for all of it. And if we do, then we stand a chance of dealing with it. Otherwise, we're just dealing with symptoms and never the cause. And we are falling into the pattern of divide. So, unravel that and see social justice as climate justice, racial justice as climate justice, as economic, socio-economic justice as climate justice. They're not separate issues. The cost of living crisis is the climate crisis. The ecological crisis is our humanitarian crisis. Yeah, with Rishi Sunak. Yeah. So it's understanding and looking for what has brought us here and how do we undo that. And it's division, it's fear of the othering and the nationalism of they're the enemy, never looking at what's the real enemy. Yeah, and so much so that for the sake of nationalism, you'll just go out and follow orders and kill your brothers and sisters on the other side of the planet. You'll take their oil, you'll take their gold, you'll take it because your government says you've got the right to do that. Yeah, without ever questioning what are we doing, why are we doing this, and what are the consequences. The consequences is where we are now. And there's more consequences because they're just issuing new licenses for new oil extraction, new coal extraction, new fossil fuels, new fracking, when they know that that is taking us to extinction. And that's why we need everyone to stand up and not be intimidated by their new laws. Their laws mean nothing. The laws throughout time we stood up and said that law is unlawful, we do not accept it, and we get rid of it. But only the people who do that. Power won't concede an inch unless we force them to do so. But we don't do it by force. Because when we do something by force, we fall right back into what the situation is, that they use force to get what they want. When we destroy property, vilify us. When we do something that allows them to tool the police up even more, when they allow them to bring in the army against us, we're giving them cause. So peaceful protest is so powerful. The numbers of people standing up and saying, not in my name, enough is enough. That's what's powerful. Fridays for Future, all across the planet, the young people are standing up and saying, enough is enough. We need total system change. The system has been created by the few, for the few. It was never meant to serve us. It served us to some extent for some of the time, but it no longer serves us. It's now blatantly obvious that they don't care about the planet or the people in peace. They don't care that their own futures are at stake. They're so blinded by greed. So we have to be those change makers. And you young people all across the planet who are doing that, you're inspiring and shaming the adults around you. And some of those adults, to be fair, have been the teenagers and youngsters of their time. They joined the CND fight want a future for your children, if you want your children to have the right to have children and have a family, you need to act now. Just buying them a present, just working hard for them, just getting the best clothes you can, the best education you can, means nothing if they don't have a future. Means nothing if they don't have an NHS when they get ill and have nowhere to go and don't have the money to pay. And we turn into America where people just die because they can't afford it. Or the free NHS time where people die because they couldn't afford it painkillers. But that's not love. Love is action. And love is the most powerful weapon against those who are harming us. And love is what connects us all to each other, to every species on earth, and to the planet itself. And those who are stepping up the inequality, increasing their abuse and their oppression, know that the time for love is now. That love, you cannot buy it. You can corrupt and buy people who are into money, but the people who stand up for peace and planet, the people who are willing to go to prison if needs be, yeah, the people who are standing up in the Amazon and dying, they're being murdered, and then someone else steps into their shoes, and someone else steps into their shoes, because love will not be silenced. Love won't be stopped. It's unstoppable. They can intimidate one of us, two of us, 10 of us, 100 of us, but there are millions and billions of us, and we will not stop until we accomplish what we need to do, which is to unify ourselves, stand up and save ourselves and every species of this planet and that planet itself. And when we do that, we're not individuals doing it. We are Mother Earth herself standing up, because we are part of her. We are listening to her. We're putting her first. We refuse to put money before planet, before life, before peace. We are the Earth rising.
Yay!
Any questions?
So much.
Yes.
I'd like to say a few words on behalf of the older generation, people like me, because one of our advantages is we've got less to lose. So when I was arrested with Deepak on Westminster Bridge, the police were saying, oh, affect your job, it'll affect your mortgage, it'll help you affect your ability to go as a tourist to the United States. So I said, well, I'm retired, I've got a pension, mortgage paid, and I'm not planning to go to the United States. So I felt, I'm just, I've got far more freedom. I can understand the huge problems, from when, back when I was a student involved in CND and anti-apartheid and so on. And I saw the risks that people took. But I've got a freedom now that I never had before. And the other thing is, I'm old enough to have seen change in my lifetime, and that means a lot. So, I campaigned against apartheid in South Africa. Now I've been to South Africa, I've seen post-apartheid South Africa. South Africa's problem now is social inequality, environmental problem, the fact that all the fertile land is being grown with stuff for export. I could hardly see that where the local people can grow their food. They seem to be living and growing on the hillsides. I've been to post-civil rights United States in the 1970s, and again, huge changes there. But again, I saw the social inequality. I saw disabled teenagers lying on the floor with medical conditions that I knew in London a taxi driver's daughter had on the United States, on the NHS. Those teenagers in America have never had that chance because their parents could not afford that brain surgery. So I think if we can use ourselves hope, but to learn and to pass on lessons and to encourage the next generation, but not leave it all to them.
Yay!
Thank you so much, Penny. Yeah, when Penny got arrested, I was on the Westminster Bridge with a group of other disabled people, all in our wheelchairs, chained together across it, blocking Westminster Bridge. Just a handful of us, we caused chaos. That third man there, Andy, he's absolutely amazing. He's been part of Deepak, and he's led us on so many incredible adventures. They've had actions inside Parliament, outside Parliament. We've blocked Oxford Street, Westminster. We've taken our protests inside art galleries. We've done the most amazing things. Just a handful of disabled people. So come and join us and be our allies.
Yes, I was saying one of the things that Deepak discovered, I don't know whether police found out what to do about this, that if you cross the road, turn round, cross the road again, and it only takes, about 30 people, you just don't stop. So you're not blocking the road, you're just crossing the road. And if it's in central London, you've got tourists and everybody else crossing the road, so you just keep crossing the road. And, with your banners and things. So.
We've had some fun, Penny and I. I wanted to say something else, and that was current culture is about selfies, and about isolating and trying to find our space in the world. And it's a culture that young people are being blamed for and accused of doing, but it's being driven very deliberately. And it's a response to the situation where people are feeling helpless in so many ways. And I loved what you said about how the protest movement is actually one that unifies and gives you purpose and helps you to see each other as not separate beings but all together standing up for something. So we can actually use that selfie culture to our advantage, because everything there's a plus and a thing. So we can try to find ways of using that selfie culture to get pictures with the things that we want to talk about, and then talk about them. Yeah, so we're still showing yourself, that's what you need to do, but